Starfleet Underground. Every week, we'll take a look at the latest Star Trek news and then check out a current or classic episode of Star Trek. This week, we're picking up Broken Pieces. Raffi is putting it all together. The Zhat Vash backstory is revealed. Seven saves Elnor, and we almost don't talk about sex robots. Almost. Our special guest is the Guinness World Record holder for most special effect makeup characters portrayed in a career. From alienactor.com, Bill Blair.
Welcome, everybody, to Starfleet Underground. We have a very exciting show coming up here with esteemed guests, which we're really looking forward to getting the intros out of the way. Now, remember, this is the podcast where the tribbles never go hungry. We're going to be talking about the latest show here. Refresh my memory on the title of the episode.
It is Season 1, Episode 8, Broken Pieces.
Broken Pieces. And forgive me, sometimes a little bit slow with me here without my coffee. I forgot to get coffee again.
And I just have to mention this real quick. We've had a lot of viewers on Earth say, why are we talking about coffee? It's 8 o'clock at night. Well, yes, it is 8 o'clock at night on Earth. However, we are up in space and time is a bit different.
Good morning.
We are waking up when you are going to bed.
Outstanding. Well, at least now they know. Thank you for that question. We haven't put our clocks on galactic time, which is usually based off the galactic center. Whatever time is in the galactic center, that's the time for all starships. If you wanted to know, that's how we keep things synchronized there. We have a guest. We're going to go through introduction, but we're going to introduce him first. We have a Mr. Bill Blair with us. You've seen him. If you watch sci-fi, you have definitely seen him. He has the distinction of having an award of way over 200 characters. As you've seen, if you love Babylon 5 like I did, he was on there. He was just about on X-Files, Invisible Man. It just goes on way too many that I could even list.
And Star Trek.
And of course, Star Trek. Mr. Blair, welcome aboard.
Hello. How are you today?
Thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure.
Go ahead, tell us a little bit about your background and as well as any news of any projects or anything you got coming up.
Well, a lot of times I get the question as to how did I get into all of the special effects and science fiction and everything else. It was really quite simple in itself. There's this old phrase of being in the right place at the right time. I was working on the movie Demolition Man with Snipes and Stallone. And I was playing one of the cryovac medical technicians, and we're all getting blown away during this big shootout between those two. And a makeup artist was visiting his girlfriend who was doing the special effect lenses for Wesley Snipes. And they were looking for a model so that he could teach other people special effects makeup. And so I volunteered, and out of all the people that volunteered, they decided that I was the one they wanted to work with. Turns out this makeup artist was also one of the key makeup artists on a TV show now doing movies called Alien Nation.
Oh, I love that show.
And a couple of weeks after working with him, I got a call from casting service that said somebody had asked for me on that show with, involving special effects and prosthetics. Would I be interested? Am I okay with that? Am I claustrophobic? Asking me all the questions. And I kind of already figured out who it was, so I said, yeah, sure, no problem. I was still available, so it turned out really well. I worked on a couple of the TV movies for that, and then kind of word of mouth got out, and I was going over to Babylon 5. I was interviewing for Star Trek Next Generation. However, I never did get picked to work on Next Generation, but there was an episode of Deep Space Nine. I got a call late at night from casting. They said one of their Klingons had to cancel, and he says, I'm just going to send you so they can see what you do. They should be using you. And so I got up the next morning, had to be in the makeup chair at 4 o'clock in the morning, because it takes approximately 3 hours to be camera ready through makeup, hair, and wardrobe. And it turns out that the first episode I was on was a very popular one called The House of Quark.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a member of the Klingon High Council. And it was just, as the story goes, the rest is history. It's just, they did see what I do and how I work. And already having had the experience of special effects prosthetics and everything done on me, that I just started working multiple episodes then, and Babylon 5 continued on. I was doing a little bit of both. I was more on Babylon 5 in the beginning than I was on Star Trek, but then as Babylon 5 came running down towards the end, I started doing more Deep Space Nine. Then, of course, that crossed over into Voyager, which crossed over into Enterprise. And then, meanwhile, I would be getting calls for other shows and projects. One of my more favorite projects was one with Elvira. And it was a 4.5-minute pre-show for her highlighted appearances, I guess you could say, and attractions during Halloween. One of those being called the House of Superstition. Mm. And so they did a 4.5-minute pre-show. And for the listeners if they don't quite understand what that is, if you've ever gone to a theme park and you go into an attraction, sometimes they gather you and hoard you in this one big room and they play a video that leads up and is like the pre-show before you go into the attraction itself in a big auditorium. And sometimes there's 3D glasses and all sorts of other stuff that goes on. Well, this was like that pre-show.
That's what you did for Las Vegas for the Borg in 4D.
Correct. It was similar thing, except I was actually part of the main attraction in the 4D, where I was actually part of that film where everybody goes into the auditorium.
Nice.
So it was the other side of it. But in this pre-show for Elvira, I actually got to play Frankenstein's monster.
Awesome.
And that was,
That's cool.
To be classic. I've had the fortune to portray Dracula, the Mummy, and Frankenstein's monster. I would still love the opportunity to do a Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I don't think I'll ever portray a wolf man because I'm just a little bit too tall and skinny for that. But what was unique about Frankenstein's monster was our stylist came from Universal Studio. And she got permission, and I got to wear not a duplicate, not a reproduction. They went to the vault at the wardrobe department and brought for me to wear the original costume that Fred Gwynne wore as Herman Munster on the Munsters back in the 60s.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Holy cow.
Getting to portray a classic Universal monster and wearing wardrobe from a classic TV show, it was, how much better can it get than that?
That's amazing, man. You've had some cool gigs.
That's really freaking cool.
Except for the one thing is I got to appear in color where Fred Gwynne only got to appear in black and white.
Ah, yes.
Very neat.
Wow, that's pretty friggin' amazing.
So that's a nutshell of how things come around and where they can lead to.
Well, since you're on the ship, if we were known about that, we would have had a glass of spoiled milk for you. But we didn't anticipate that. We can get the replicator if you need one there, Bill.
Yeah, we can make that happen if you need it.
You know what I'd rather have before the replicators? Although I'll tell you right now, if we had replicators, the store shelves wouldn't be out of everything.
It's true.
Really.
Seriously.
I would actually prefer the beaming technology, because then I could be there in person with you folks.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that is true. Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be.
We wouldn't have to worry about airlines, and we wouldn't have to worry about taking our shoes and half our clothes off for scanners and everything else.
No, just a 2-minute warning.
It solves a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, it would.
I'm just worried about the whole molecules disintegrating thing, I'm concerned slightly about that in reality. But yeah, if I could go pop in anywhere I needed to, totally would do it.
If you listen to the technology of Star Trek on that, they have dozens of backup replication technology within the transporter system. So if one fails, they've got something that backs that up, I think it's something like 22, almost like 24 replications of the procedure. So,
yet somehow you end up in a mirror universe. You get in a mirror universe by a transporter malfunction. I'm just saying, man.
Yeah.
You got to watch out with the transporters.
Technically, that was not a transporter malfunction. That was the fact that they hit an ion storm or something like that.
Minor detail, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
Let's face it. They're just like in real life.
You shouldn't do a podcast during a lightning storm either. I got that. Okay. Good point.
The computer's like, looks good to me. Send it through.
That's another reason for not doing things on video, right?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Things can happen.
Yeah.
It's like when you do voiceover work in radio and TV. When you do voiceover work, it doesn't matter how you dress to go to work.
Yeah.
This is true. Thankfully, nobody out there on the podcast land can see what I'm actually wearing. So,
You mean you don't want anybody seeing that tutu you got on? Is that it? You don't want anybody to see those funny hypnotic glasses that you wear all the time, just so
Oh
we don't wear rose colored glasses. We wear the black and white Twilight Zone glasses.
Yeah.
We're going to continue on. Heather, go ahead and introduction.
My name is Heather, and I'm the one wearing the disco shirt.
Cool.
I have this shirt on today that just says, "I get enough exercise pushing my luck every day."
And Rocky, our esteemed engineer, introduce yourself.
Just playing engineer over here, pushing the buttons and trying not to get beamed someplace.
And let's have a half second of silence for Fred. He's still out there on a Section 31 mission. We haven't heard any communication back from him yet, but we're hoping everything goes well and he'll join us next week.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. So good luck out there, Fred, wherever you are.
And don't bring back any tribbles.
No,
Yes,
please, no more
tribbles.
We have enough of those.
So this week we had a question from a viewer. His name is Andy. And his question was, aren't we supposed to be in a society that has evolved past money? Why the emphasis on greed? And I thought that was a really good question, especially when talking about selling Borg parts or Raffi being poor. That's a great question. What do you guys think about it?
Well, I think a world without money is a wonderful and exciting idea. We just couldn't afford it.
Bum, bum.
I think
it's something they brought up, and they were kind of like, no, it's there's money in this world because we've got gambling on Deep Space Nine, and there's money involved in that, and we're always talking about having enough credits to do something. So I think it's one of those things they wrote, and then they really couldn't really go with the whole gimmick.
But if you're aware of it when it comes to money, Federation is supposed to run on one thing, but the other races may not buy into the Federation stuff. So let's say you want to go to Ferengi and you want to buy stuff, and it says, I got Federation goodwill. Yeah, screw your goodwill. I want to go press Latinum.
Yeah.
So each civilization may have currency that they need or want to do with because they're not part of the Federation.
Well, it's kind of like, if you join the Federation, you don't have to worry about money anymore. Maybe that's what it is. If you're not part of the Federation, then you're scrounging for coins.
Okay, so that explains selling the Borg parts, but it doesn't explain Raffi being poor because she was a part of Starfleet. So shouldn't she have been taken care of regardless? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but we don't know if she was actually poor or she wanted to be isolated because she was definitely having issues. So, I mean, she could have found a contractor job. She could have found something because even though Starfleet got rid of her, we already know that there are a lot of work to be had, not within Starfleet, because that's where Rios was getting his jobs and things from. So it might be the fact that she was just like, I don't want to deal with anybody. Picard, you had a family inheritance to tie back on. This is what I have.
So basically, Starfleet is like your normal average day corporation where they're going to look for any which way that they could cut you off from retirement, 401k, any kind of like security. For any reason.
Well, this is really a big question. I mean, it's really hard we need an official answer somewhere. This is a hard one to think about.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that'll be another show that they'll bring up in the future. Star Trek, Human Resources.
Well, if anyone's listening and if you guys have a better idea, please email us at thecollective@starfleetunderground.com and we will share your thoughts on air.
Today, we're going to be reviewing the latest Picard episode, which really lived up to the hype. I mean, we had everything. We had Seven, we had explosions, we have mysteries revealed, histories kind of laid out. So it was really good. What did everyone think?
Oh, wow. What an action-packed, information-packed episode. Oh, my God.
This episode, I had to watch it twice, and I'm still thinking I need to watch it at least one more time to really envelop it all because there were so many things. And it was basically the catch-up for everybody episode. They put every little detail, solved every little question you may have had. I'm sure came up with more, but everything that you're wondering about, they hit right in this episode, and it was just like, whoa.
Yeah, right, they answered some questions.
Finally revealed it. This was the reveal episode.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess there's one more episode left?
2, I believe.
2.
Oh, yeah. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I thought the last episode, I thought, okay, we just got on top of the roller coaster. We're about to go straight down. We actually paused for a little bit of this episode, let everyone catch their breath first, and now we're going to go straight down, I think, down the big coaster.
Well, the first thing they did at the beginning of the show is that they blew my theory out of the water about Commodore Oh being a mirror universe. Didn't know that she was basically half Vulcan and half Romulan. I mean, we see the history of the Zhat Vash right there. And we see in the whole beginning them getting together. And we see that that woman that Soji had talked to was a part of the people that went full goose bozo.
Yeah, that's
when they touched that thing.
Anti-Ramda, yeah.
Right. And did you notice there were no men, just women? No Narek? Narek never did it?
No, it was kind of like the way the Romulans had where Elrond, I said his name wrong, didn't I? I feel it in my soul. I said his name
Elnor.
wrong.
Elnor, yes.
I knew it. I knew I said it wrong. Damn, I need my coffee. Just like Elnor was with the women to learn how to be his badass self.
Women are badass. You cannot ignore the fact that women are badass. You just have to pay attention.
Especially Narissa. Oh my God, Narissa was so freaking cool. Everyone else is going mad, and she's like, "Where do we begin?"
Well, she
Mars
was like
attacks.
already. She was. I mean, this you grab the glowing handrail. I don't know what the hell that thing was. The admonition, but. Don't grab a big, glowy, electric-looking handrail. It's a bad idea, especially with both hands. And it really messed up a lot of these Romulans. But she was just as cold-hearted as she ever was. I don't think it affected her one bit. She probably just grabbed a thing and was like, yeah, whatever.
When we get further into the show, we see even more of how she is. But I'm going to try to be nice and stay within her timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. And you, coming from the other side of this, Bill, you probably know how much work it goes into getting all of that makeup and getting everyone all prepared for doing stuff like, I mean, to rip off your face with your hands like they had in the beginning of it. I mean, that just can't be easy unless you're a method actor and then you got to go get plastic surgery.
Oh, jeez.
Sometimes things are not exactly as they appear. For example, what we call the Mission Impossible makeup. If anybody remembers way back, or even like what you're talking about, is that, somebody puts makeup on to impersonate someone else, and then at the end of the episode, you see them pull that thing off all in one piece and go back to who they really were. This is a similar technology, procedure to what they do for a scene like that, where it's like they rip a face off and there's another one underneath it. However, it's just a special technique that's used that, for the lack of going into a lot of detail, a special barrier is put on the skin. And so that, unfortunately, that makeup will only last a couple of hours. And then, yes, you can pull that all off in one piece. But otherwise, when we work on a show and we're going to be in there for 10, 12, 14 hours, it goes on in its own way, so it will stay, and it comes off in pieces just like it goes on.
So that explains when she ripped her cheek off like that. That's how she was able to do it from the special effects side.
Yeah, if anybody wants to see exactly how that worked with me, you can go to my website, alienactor.com, and in the lower left, you will see a link to a YouTube video that highlights my appearance on Hollywood Boulevard when I received my Guinness World Record certificate. And during that appearance, we did the Mission Impossible because it was not going to be feasible for me to sit there and have a makeup artist remove my makeup one piece at a time. So you can actually see about, I would say, 2/3 of the way through the video, I actually pulled off my special effects makeup to reveal who I really am underneath, and the fact that part of my face becomes flesh tone and the other part that's just me was still the makeup colors. And then I excused myself for about 30 minutes, went in and removed the rest, and came back as my human self.
Now, for those people like me that like the behind the scenes stuff, make sure you check out that site there. That's going to be pretty friggin' amazing to see.
When that woman was ripping out her cheeks and her eyes and everything, that is another example of why this series is taking a bit from Game of Thrones, because that completely reminded me of the Red Wedding scene in Game of Thrones.
Oh, the Red Wedding scene. They didn't have anybody, thankfully, on Star Trek get stabbed through a pregnant belly.
No.
Oh, my God.
But Catelyn in, Game of Thrones, she, clawed her face and her eyes, and it reminded me of that scene.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal to see all those people going nuts like that.
Yeah.
But then when they transition to the next scene, we see the concentration that it's Elron, right?
Elnor.
Elnor. Okay. With Elnor, where they put a flashbang, coming from a military background, a flashbang when someone throws it into the room, you are disoriented like a long time because it gives concussion to your ear. And he was able to kind of willpower his way through it, which I thought was kind of impressive, to at least mount some sort of a fight back.
It's some sort of a fight. He was still kicking ass. He wasn't slowing down. I mean, he was not slowing down one bit. He kept going. He's a fighter all the way.
But that's a great point. If anyone has ever experienced a flash bomb, those things are freaking serious, completely serious. We had a neighbor, the SWAT team came in, they flash bombed his place. He lives like an entire building away from me, and my building shook. And I walked out like, what the hell just happened? And I see all these SWAT members and everything. So, I turn around and I go back in my apartment because I'm not doing that. But that's some serious arsenal right there.
Yeah, it is. It's designed, the flash bomb is not to kill, but the blinding light is to get one, for you to overamp your vision so you can't see anything. And then the concussion, the noise echoes off the walls and everything, and it impacts you, which disorients you. It takes a while for you to come back from that. And he was able to mount a fight. And then we see the badass Borg herself come down the stairs.
Yes, I love her.
Just amazing to see Seven come in at just the nick of time. And the way he gave her a big hug at the end of all that. I mean, who wouldn't hug Seven of Nine like that, especially in his situation?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you see how motherly she was? The old Seven on Voyager would have never had hugged back like that. Yeah. But she was almost like motherly. She's like, dear, I'm here now. I'll take care of you.
And you could tell it was uncomfortable for her too, but she did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she reluctantly hugged back. Yeah.
And like, I'm here for you. It's okay.
It's like pretty cool. Mama's going to kill them for you.
And she did a good job. And also, too, before the opening sequence, that one part where Narissa is visiting her aunt. Narek is a bad nephew. He never visited his aunt, especially if that aunt was the one that raised both of them. He is messed up.
Yeah. Sometimes a guy's got to do things, like androids.
Seriously. What also I really loved about this is the way Picard has finally matured back to his way again, to be like he was back on TNG. I mean, he showed his loyalty to Soji.
My note written down is Picard again. He's
exactly.
back. That is the Picard we all know and love.
Exactly.
It felt like we were working with a man who's, beaten around and has been suffering and is not the same guy. Well, we're starting to remember who he is, and it's good to see him back.
And it was really cool that Raffi, you saw her put herself, this is a little bit later in the show, but you find out that she put herself cold turkey on the alcohol. And when she did that, she was able to figure stuff out. The EMH tattled and Raffi figured everything out.
That was my other note. After Picard is Picard again, was Raffi is Raffi again. Although we haven't really seen her in her original form, she's definitely way better now. And I like her so much more when she's on it.
Yeah. The one thing about that scene was I was a little disappointed that they had her figure it out off screen. I would have liked to have seen her figure it out on screen, because when this happened, I was like, wait a minute, how does she know what happened? No one talks to the EMH. Like, they didn't show that, and I wish they would have showed that.
But she figured it out. She finally figured it out. And then I thought there was a little giggle fit for me is to see Picard kind of get his revenge on the Admiral. He's like, I told you. She's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that was, shut the fuck up. We're gonna send a fleet. Okay, jeez, leave me alone.
Now, here's a question for you, Bill. When they have somebody who's obviously isn't on set, or there's a part there where Raffi is trying to talk to somebody who obviously isn't there, do they still use like the green ball or something to snap their attention, or is there an actor somewhere like waving his hands? Oh, look at me!
Well, you've got a couple of different possibilities there from my experiences, because I can go clear back for an example, while it didn't involve dialogue. There was a little known film years ago called Garfield about a cat.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, that's a small film called Garfield. Okay, I'm familiar with the cat. Yeah.
Yes, and I had the part of being Garfield's groomer at the pet store. So you can imagine what it's like when I'm trying to groom thin air.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
And so I'm given just some parameters. And then when they're done, when they finish my shot, they come in with these silver 2 balls on sticks, and they put them in the area where Garfield is supposed to be. Well, in what you're talking about, it can be very similar, yes. There's, of course, the line of sight. And so before the shot, it's already determined where that character is going to be and where you have to look at. Now, if they're looking, for example, when they shoot a scene and we're doing what's called overs, so they're doing the close-up of me and then they come over my shoulder and do the close-up of you. Okay, so somebody would actually be next to camera when they're shooting that angle. They're shooting me, but obviously I'm talking to nobody, but there would be a live person there who I would be interacting with. So I would have a good line of sight rather than just an X placed on a stick somewhere. Now, in this upcoming movie that I worked on, which is another live action animated crossover, by the way, I have a scene where, yes, I'm supposed to be looking at this character that's not there. So because of the line of sight, they actually had to put an X at the corner of the box on the camera lens, because I had to have my focus had to be so close to the lens that I couldn't even afford to look past camera. So there's different ways that can happen, whether it's a giant colored X put someplace, whether it's on a stick, whether they tape it to the edge of the camera, or there could actually be somebody off camera that you're looking at so that you have something to interact with. So again, it's up to each individual production and to the actors and the director and the camera department how that's going to work the best. What I think is real fun when I'm working with green screen. And for green screen, they put a bunch of colored green X's so that post-production, special effects, visual effects have reference points of where everything's supposed to go. But I may be having to focus my attention on just one of those X's.
So this goes to show you that the acting, as a lot of people will try to assume, isn't as easy as it looks. You have to really be engaged and look like you're actually talking or going on your lines, everything.
In the last 20 years plus, since the advent of computer graphics and visual effects has evolved, it has become much more technical when it comes to making certain movies. Back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it was just all live action for the most part. They didn't have this kind of computer special effects. It was all about whoever was there. Nothing was really added too much later on. But now everything seems to have some form of visual effects. Here's a real fun story relating to Star Trek, the movie Into Darkness. I actually spent one whole day as part of the visual effects crew for post-production, where they scanned my entire body in both vertical, seated positions, everything, for the sole purpose of putting my body inside the suits of Kirk and Spock as they're flying through space in their spacesuits.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
You see their faces, but everything else about them is me.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. They even talked about that on the after show about the 3D mapping. That's friggin' amazing.
Yeah, and on the after show too, Seven talks about how she tried to make it tactile when she was doing, later on in the episode, you'll see she's doing the controls for the Borg ship, and she really makes it look like she's turning it and it's moving, and she does a really good job with that.
When in fact, she's working in thin air.
Yeah, I find that so amazing because, one, you're just pretending, you can pantomime as much as you can. But at some point, you've got to have an effects crew come in with their computers and make imagery that fits that and make it look realistic.
Yes.
But they can't do that if they don't have a good actor. So, Bill, thank you for being one of the good actors.
Yeah, no, to have an actor to give you all those, to make it, it's all part of it, and it makes it work. Totally.
Yeah, I can take you back even where I got some of my early training for doing some of this. There's been a reboot of a very well-known show from Mr. Lynch called Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
And in the original version of Twin Peaks, there was a set called the Double R Diner, where they just absolutely loved their pie. Well, in that, of course, like every diner, there is the short order cook that you see every once in a while back in the kitchen through this little window. And I played that short order cook. And back there, I have to be appearing like I'm preparing food, taking orders and everything else. And the only thing you see behind me through that window is a shelf with some condiment, paper, plates, whatever, stocked on a shelf. The rest of that back room was completely empty.
Oh, wow.
I have to look like I'm flipping burgers and doing other things on this grill below me when in fact I have nothing but air.
That's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Now, are you a good cook in real life, or are you just good at acting like a cook? That's the question.
I will definitely say this. I'm only as good a cook as those that eat it and like it.
Okay. That's a fair answer.
I mean, as I tell everybody, I can cook anything, whether it's edible or not is up to you.
Okay. I like it.
Now, just to segue into what you said about the special effects, this is also the first time we have a chance to see how the Borg Cube regenerates itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching all those little green pod things running around, putting the Borg ship back together, and that was amazing.
That was incredible.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of insects starts putting the sandcastle back together or something. It was really weird. I dug that. That was a cool special effect.
But it makes sense. I mean, that's perfect. That acts just like the Borg. All of those insects acting in unison to complete a task. That's what the Borg do.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. And also, I want to bring up, too, when they're at the very beginning and Raffi, I believe she starts talking to all of Rios's holograms. She's looking for Rios.
No, that was a little bit later on. That's when she was first talking to the navigator one.
Yeah.
I love that she couldn't tell which one she was talking to. It was like she went through half a scene like, wait, are you even the right guy?
Yeah, I love that. That was hilarious. And each one is different and they all have different memories. And when their eyes get the computer glitch looking thing.
The caption said blipping. I love that there's a name for it. They called it blipping.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. That was very interesting and hilarious and very enjoyable to watch.
I was getting the idea that every time they blipped, they were trying to access information that they were blocked from.
Well, they were trying to access information, yes. And if you notice later on in the episode, they said that they are all scans of Rios. They're all broken versions of Rios, which means they have access to his mind and his memories and that type of a thing. So when he went back and he fuddled with them, like what that one hologram said, he was probably taking out those memories that they couldn't remember.
Exactly. It's kind of, I guess that's why they call it broken pieces. They're all pieces of himself, probably through the various things he was going through.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. What I also really enjoyed this episode is what Rocky brought up earlier, is that the Picard is back. He finally turns into a mentor with Soji. That
scene where they're having breakfast.
Yeah. Talking about data.
That was a highlight of the whole series.
Yeah. It really was.
Yeah, really get down to who, really explain to this android who Data was. And it's interesting how when she doesn't know something and you explain something to her or she experiences it, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, I knew that. And she just realizes she knows it. And the ending
she
of the
does
scene,
the head tilt. She
does a head tilt. And at the end, she says, he loved you. Just matter of fact. That was could you keep your eyes dry? I couldn't.
She said it. It was a statement. She's like, yeah, he loved you. And you can see Picard got hit between the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I love about this show is you see reactions like that from the actors. You see them react and the nuances. It's very subtle, but in high definition, it comes across so clearly. And it's just like you're really watching a performer just as if they're on a stage in front of you, being an awesome performer. It's really coming through so clear now. I'm kind of jealous that we didn't have HD 20 years ago.
Another thing that I kind of liked on that, and did you pick up on this, Heather, as well, is that Picard finally admitted that he has issues trying to be emotional.
Yeah, I did pick up on that. And honestly, like you were saying before, that scene with Soji, he was trying to hold it back, but you could see the emotion on his face. Mm-hmm. And that is a good example of why Patrick Stewart is such an amazing actor. And I also want to bring up, since we are doing the sentimental thing, and I'm more of a funny person. Did you guys notice how they compared Soji to a vacuum? So
you're telling she's a sucker? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Does that mean she blows? I'm just curious. Just want to know.
She could go from blow to suck. We don't know.
Boy. She's switchable.
I mean, she is, a very highly...
She has mucus.
Yes. That's another way of saying it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. It's funny. Nobody had any sex in this episode. We were all thinking about it a couple episodes ago. It was everything we were talking about. So,
but I swear to God, Maddox went to a planet just to make a planet full of sex dolls. I am just saying.
I guess it's a normal thing in the future. Some people just work on sex bots.
Oh, my God.
The technology is there to make the most wonderful sex bot. And also, it's also a happy android. I don't understand it. I can't reason it, but I don't mind it.
And then after that, when Raffi goes in and she's talking to the navigation hologram, she kisses him on the head and he does that thing where he puts his hands on his face and he smiles. And it reminded me of that emoji. And I just really love that part. And I wanted to bring that up.
That was cute.
The Rios holograms are fantastic.
Quick question, Star Trek question. So holograms, not counting the Doctor and Voyager, do holograms physically touch and pick up stuff, or are they sort of see-through? Or,
with the technology they have when it comes to hologram, what it is supposed to be a concentrated vector of light.
And force fields.
Correct. So depending upon how tightly the molecules are, they can interact and they can pick up stuff. Like when the hologram that does the maintenance, he was underneath working. He was actually using tools, flip the switch with a little light. So yeah, they can actually do things as well as they did in Voyager with the Doctor.
Bill, were you ever a hologram whenever you did any of your many characters?
No. I was never on one of the holodecks or anything like that. Everything I did was real.
Awesome.
But it probably goes back to that training you said about being able to interact with the green screen or to really act when there's nothing there, no point of reference, but to still go through the motion. Like you were talking about flipping burgers and stuff. Right. I imagine I'd look like I'm going through a seizure if I tried to make believe I was making a burger.
Well, this is another question that, people bring up when I'm doing my regular Q&As at conventions and everything about, they think a lot of people, as you said earlier, there's a lot more that goes into acting than just what you sometimes see on the screen. There's a lot behind the scenes, like the 3 hours of getting ready with the makeup, the wardrobe, and the hair before whatever I do shows up on camera. And there's some things, that happen on camera that take a little bit of rehearsing before we ever shoot it. 2 instances, one of which I'll relate to is from Babylon 5, where we had this was, again, long before true, we had CGI and other things, but to actually, like on Doctor Who, they'll actually have the actors in full costume on set, but later on, they'll actually green screen their faces and their heads in for whatever race they're supposed to be, instead of actually putting makeup on them and appearing like that on camera. Well, in Babylon 5, we had 2 specific pullover heads, one which was called the Lort and the other the Pakmara. We referred to them as basically the remote control animatronic heads, where if you can imagine taking a remote control race car, these little scale models that you'd run around a parking lot that operate off of a remote control that has the 2 joysticks. And they would cannibalize that car and they'd put all the gears and the motors and they'd mount them inside of these giant alien heads, which I would then pull on over my head. Oh. And the battery pack would be hanging down the back in the small of my back with the remote receiver so that the special effects guy off camera would just be operating the joysticks. It would make the eyes blink, make the tentacles move, make the cheeks move, whatever they decided, wherever they mounted something. And
I bet that was so heavy.
It was heavy. It was hot. It was dark. The only thing I had was 2 little pinholes on either side of the bridge of my nose just to know that there was light on outside of me. And if I was lucky, I could sense through that what direction I was facing. But most of the time, yes, I was operating in the dark. And I would actually need my own rehearsals in order to be on camera, make sure that the back of my head was not being seen. In this one scene, on this one episode, I'm actually supposed to turn around with another group of people and walk down the hall and make a turn to the right and exit off camera. Well, if I turned around, obviously you would see this battery pack hanging out the back of the prosthetic head that I had pulled over. So we had to work out our own rehearsal with 1 or 2 of the other gentlemen in character that I've worked with in the past, and we would choreograph how I would turn, and they would slip in behind me like a do-si-do in a dance routine to put themselves between me and the camera, so the camera could no longer see the back of my head.
Oh.
And then I'd have to walk down the hallway 5, 6, 7 steps, whatever it is, and know that I turn to the right and continue on down what would have been another hallway as I go off camera. So we would have our own, in addition to the principals having their rehearsals with camera, we had our own special rehearsal to make sure that we could turn, camera wouldn't see the back of my head, I'd walk down the hallway, turn to the right, and everything would be fine. And the only way I could do that is count the number of steps that I went. And one time I miscounted.
Oh, no.
And that hallway dead-ended.
Oh, no.
And I took 1 or 2 steps too many. I lost count, and I went smack head on into that wall.
Oh, jeez.
And so there was an immediate cut. Bill, are you okay? That type of thing. And I apologized. I said, I guess that's my one for the week. Let's do it again. I'm fine. But it gave, once everybody knew I was okay, of course, it gave everybody a really good laugh and lightened up everything. And we did it again. And the next couple of takes, I was perfect again. Somehow, just within that one, I lost the count of how many steps I'd taken. But there's a lot that sometimes goes into this. And people say, how hard is it really to do all of this stuff? I mean, I don't have dialogue 95% of the time when I'm doing these special effect characters, which also helps the fact that I get to work so often because I'm not stereotyped or I'm not cast because of my voice. So I can go from character to character to character. I simply say to people, have you ever played the game of charades? Most people at one time in their life, until computers came along, have played and know what the game of charades is, that you have to convey a movie title, song title, or whatever, just with the use of hand gestures and body language.
So I bet you kick ass at that game.
I've had fun with it, yes. I mean, I can get very animated when I'm playing that game, but that's what it's all about. When I'm on set, I am playing charades 8, 10, 12 hours a day to create the story that goes on behind everything without using dialogue. And in a lot of cases with these characters, everything that I am photographed for is my reactions to something that's going on.
I love the show businessness of all of this, because you have all that, the charades part of acting, but you also combine that with a bunch of people with their remote controls trying to control a physical prop and then choreograph all of that. And then camera work, you have to get the camera at the right angle and get that exactly right and still make it look visually interesting. It's totally a dance. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you throw in the modern day elements. You've got chroma key stuff, the green screens, and then the post-production to take a performance and just, put the little special effects on top of it to make it even more of a performance or put you more into the story. It just blows me away that we can do all this stuff now. And it's just so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm putting in my request now, Bill. If we ever have charades, you're my partner. I'm just tell right off the bat.
Wait
if
a minute.
anybody asks, no,
I didn't even know we were doing that.
If it ever happens, I'm claiming you right off the bat.
I'm calling you on Pictionary. I got it on Pictionary. You can't have Bill for Pictionary. I've got him.
I'm totally screwed.
Heather, you're out.
But to expand on what you were saying, now just take that one step further, as we were talking about earlier. Let's say you're interacting on set with a character that's going to be added in post-production CGI later on. Now you have to choreograph this dance routine with something that's actually not even there.
Yeah, totally.
Like you're supposed to walk down you're supposed to walk down a hallway with somebody that's not even there.
I like that as an actor for this kind of acting that you do, because you hear what actors do. One of the things they naturally do in a scene with another actor is they just react. That's some of which they just, an actor in front of you is so good, even though you're the one that's on screen, they're off screen and acting to you and you're reacting to that. And that you get a performance that is phenomenal when you're working with great actors. You don't have that advantage when you're acting to a tennis ball on a stick or through some plastic thing contraption on your head. So you have to completely emote a completely different way. And you're probably one of the best at it because you obviously do it all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Let's take this one step further for a moment and go back to before the actor actually gets the role. It's called the audition. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, a lot of auditions is called self-tape, where you, with cell phones and everything else, they actually want you to do your own audition with your cell phone camera and then just send that in to casting. They can see dozens or hundreds of people that they would be able to see otherwise. But now you have to have, not only do you have to be the actor, but you also have to be the cameraman, lighting, and if it's a dialogue, if it's not a monologue, you've got to find somebody who's a decent reader who can read the off-camera lines back to you so that you can react to them. Suppose you get somebody that doesn't know how to do that. No matter how good you are, your audition is still going to look horrible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's becoming tougher and tougher, which is why I was fortunate during my career that most of the work that I did, I bypassed the audition process. I tried my best to get myself known in what I do, and then I focused on getting to know the producers, the writers, directors, anybody that could be responsible for hiring me that just said, let's call him up and see if he's available, which happened to me on many of the shows. Like, here's another one. I worked on the TV show The Invisible Man, and I literally got called by the director because there was going to be a special gag in this scene where the Invisible Man is invisible, but there's other things going on that I have to be a part of. And production and the producers were thinking, oh, we're going to have to put up all this scaffolding, wire this guy so we can pull him up so he looks dead. Because what's happening is this guy is the dead guy in the casket at a funeral that the Invisible Man walks up in all this crowd who's passing by, paying their last respects. He works his way into the line. He walks up and he actually reaches and sits this dead guy up in the coffin at this funeral in a church to steal his Rolex watch off his wrist. Now I have to perform all of that with actually nobody there.
Oh, man.
Wow.
To sit up and look like I'm dead. My arm extends out into thin air and acts like somebody's trying to pull a watch off of my wrist.
That's cool, man.
And because this director knows that what I can do, he told his producer, said, look, I know this guy that does this type of stuff all the time. Let me call him. He can probably save us a ton of money. I called him. I said, give me a little while. I called him back in about 6 hours. I figured out exactly how I could do this. I didn't have to be wired. They didn't have to do all this extra post-production work that they thought they were going to. And the best compliment I got when I was on set is the producers came up to me and mentioned that I was this director's go-to guy and that I didn't let them down, that I did everything and it worked exactly the way they needed it to.
See, that is how freaking standing.
Sometimes having a reputation, does help, and bypassing the audition process. Go to the people that can hire you. The same thing happened with me on Argo. I got a call, not from casting, not from a director, but I got the job on Argo as the blue-eyed Argo robot because one of the wardrobe department people I had worked with on Deep Space Nine. And she told her costume supervisor, says, hey, I know this guy. He can handle a costume like this for 15 hours and not complain. He's not going to have to break every 30 minutes and say, I have to go to the bathroom. He's going to get hot, but he's going to be able to tolerate it. And I got called. I went in. They found a costume that the way they could make it fit me, and that's how it all happened without having to audition. And that's, if people are listening that just want to know, there are other ways to get work in this industry as an actor without having to go through the audition process. But you still have to be somewhat of a salesman and let these people know what your product is and how you can serve them the best.
That's a great tip.
You're a great solution to a problem, that's for sure. And of course, the old classic, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But you also have to know it. So
I'm going to take you one beyond that.
Oh, good.
It's not who you know. It's actually who knows you.
There you go. Yeah, I know the guy. That's the guy. He's the guy to do it. Yeah.
I can know a lot of people, and those people are the ones that are responsible for hiring. But if they don't know about me, I'll never get the call.
Good point.
See, and we could take that it's about connections, which is really awesome.
Very good.
And if we remember also in the show, they show the whole thing about connections when it came to Seven wanting to reconnect all the Borg. You could see in her eyes the fear that she had on trying to, when she decided that she was going to reconnect.
Yeah.
It's like that Picard had that fear and she had that fear, but she knew that was the only valuable way of they were going to be able to free themselves or escape was by being able to do that.
They mentioned that on Ready Room, how that was 7 of 9 facing the thing that she had the greatest fear of. That was what she scared the most. Mm-hmm. And because she was so scared of that, that's why they wanted her to face it. And that's why they put her in that situation where she had to face that.
Which was pretty cool that they did that for one. And the fact that she wanted to do, again, the greater good. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on that. But if you notice, is that when it came down to an end, once it was done, it didn't say 7, you have a job to do. It was Annika. Annika has work to be done. So to me, that's kind of like the Borg knew what was going on, because they said, like, okay, you got us. It's time for you to go. Regardless whether or not if that cube was reconnected to the collective, we don't know. But I just thought that was kind of telling that she used her real name rather than 7.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I also noticed at the end of that scene, I mean, all the stuff Seven's going through is, the most amazing, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in that situation. And she just has to be damned. But at the end of it all, when she comes out of it, Elnor is there going, are you going to assimilate me now? And it was kind of funny because I'm like, yeah, I'd be there and be like, yeah, you want it. Come on, assimilate me. But yeah, it was a legitimate question. Is she going to, he understands the entirety of what the Borg is and that he might be assimilated. It's just kind of like, oh my goodness.
But he still had that childlike innocence.
Yeah.
He was like, he wasn't upset. He wasn't scared he was like, a matter of, oh, you're going to assimilate me now?
Yeah. And I want to bring up too, since we're talking about that, the first time you are assimilated into the collective, you have a junkie-like fix, a euphoric high. And first of all, isn't that addicting? And second of all, as soon as she became the Borg Queen, as soon as she connected, that's when Narissa opened up the Borg Cube and all of the Borg flew out into space. If she's connected to all of the Borg who flew out in space, she must have experienced dying 1,000 times all at once. And the way that they died was being in space, you sort of explode internally and it's not fun. And wouldn't that make a person mad to, one, experience that euphoric high and then seconds later experience 1,000 deaths?
Well, she screamed. You see her, she screamed out when that happens. That was very un-Borg-like when she freaked out and kind of screamed.
Right, but when she screamed, no, it was like she was saying, no, I'm losing my collective. But I felt like the way she should have screamed no was, holy crap, no, I'm dying 1,000 deaths and we're all dying at once and I can feel this.
Mm.
Maybe that's just part of being the queen, is you can sense it all, but you still have to control it. Yeah, good question.
It was that part was very telling when it came to her.
The other side of that is, it's a great way to get rid of all the Borg at once. Just space them. That's like the ultimate answer right now on all the space shows is, we're just going to throw them out the airlock, or we're going to space their ass, just throw them out.
But she couldn't do it with everyone. There were ones that were internal.
Yeah, so you just can't Borg the entire space the entire Borg ship at once.
And when the Borg ship opens and they're all sucked out into space, wouldn't Narissa and her person be sucked out into space too? And they were just
they had magnetic boots on or something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you're right.
And they were more towards the internal section. That's why I think there was enough to get her.
I've been meaning to get those magnetic Doc Martens.
There you go.
Yeah.
The other side of this, and I saw somebody mention this on Twitter, was like, don't you guys remember the scene in First Contact where the Borg are walking around outside on the spaceship of the starship, when they're walking around the deflector array, and they're not in spacesuits, they're just Borg walking around, and, how is that happening? And meanwhile, you get 1,000 Borg sucked out of the Borg ship. Are they all dying at once, or are they just kind of misplaced? I'm wondering, were they actually physically in harm being spaced like that? Or was it just something they were just sucked out physically and they couldn't retrieve them right away?
Well, that may or may not be a question that we'll answer down the pipe. I'm sure we'll see something in Memory Alpha about it.
Probably, yeah.
Or was it a way of seeding other areas?
Yeah, who knows? And they're going to land somewhere. That's how they found you.
It. You're going to go flying through space and all of a sudden you got a Borg on your windshield. Like, oh, shit.
Mama, it's raining Borgs. So what I kind of also had liked in the shows, not only did Ralphie, as you love her there, Rocky, how she did her detective work with the 5 different Rios in order to find out about Vladimir and everything. We get a chance to really understand why Rios is the way he is.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine having to come down so hard on someone that they commit suicide in front of you?
Oh, and it's such a moral dilemma because, even though you're one of the best starship captains in the world, and you're given this order, and that's your duty. You've got to follow this order. As horrible as it is, you've got to pull it off. You realize you're killing off a synthetic life form. That's like, if it could really mess with you in your head. And to the fact that you get laid into that hard and your only solution is to phaser your head, that's awful. That's a lot of horrible stuff in this.
We learned who was responsible for that was Commodore Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, she got all the nasty parts of the Romulans in her.
I wonder if O raped the captain's mind like she did with Agnes.
That's a good question because you don't know. Was it a long distance subspace communication? Did they get the order that way, or was it in person like that? Because that, right. That could be even more traumatic.
So that was really vicious. So I'm waiting for Commodore O to get her comeuppance because she looks like she was ahead of all that. And again, she was showing something that was over thousands of years that happened ago.
And it's one thing to have evil people and to be against evil people. It's another thing when those evil people think what they're doing is for the good of humanity and they're trying to stop, say, the apocalypse. So I really like what they're doing with the Romulans.
I'm thinking also the Romulans created the artificial life forms. They're still Romulan. And if they're Romulan, that means the artificial life forms would have probably been based something according to how they are. But when they became self-aware, they realized, wow, we're following a whole race of people that are pretty fucked up right here. So we got to get rid of them. And so they're taking and projecting that that's going to happen to all of them. And that may not have been the case. So they're operating, in my opinion, from a place of fear.
Well, that was the big point at the end of the episode was the whole fear aspect of it. You're going to react to fear. What are you going to base your decision on? And is it the right decision or not? And making a decision based off of fear is apparently not the right thing to do because you end up killing a lot of innocent, life forms. It doesn't seem to be the right way to go, but at the same time, you look at it and go, well, what if we meet all these synthetic life forms? What really is so bad? What really makes them the bringer of all hell and destruction? Is it going to really be that bad? So do you react in fear of what's going to happen, or do you kind of, do the quote unquote right thing and let's go with it and try not to attack and destroy? It's the big moral dilemma of the whole thing because, when you react out as fear, you think you're doing exactly the thing you have to do. You've added all the math up. We can't just not do something. We have to do something. Is, the answer destroy all synthetic life forms? Probably not. But it's like the big question at the end, giving way to fear.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely it was. And that's, they turned around and had a long-term plan of putting Commodore O in the Starfleet in order to do what she did. At least we get a chance to see Agnes admit, and this is her window to be a saving grace, is that as Heather said, that she was mind raped, that she finally came out, and now that she's past that, she was able to talk to Soji and actually start to admire Soji and to see, just like you got a crooked toe and you got beauty marks and that was really cool. And that question that Soji asked really was like, am I a person to you?
Yeah, and you could tell it by her face what the answer was.
I mean, wow. That is kind of like, you have people develop affection for their cars. They call their car by name and they talk to it. It's like, come on, baby, please start up. Don't leave me out here. And people develop a real affection towards their vehicles. And even in today's standard, we have people marrying appliances.
And marrying sex dolls.
Yeah.
They really are.
You hear all that. They are. They're out there. They hold all kinds of stuff. So, to them, it's a person. I even read somewhere as women married a chandelier.
Oh my goodness! I know there's
one hell of a chandelier.
I know there's a guy in Japan who has a anime hologram that he married.
Yeah, I read about that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So that's got to be a little bit on the weird side.
As long as it helps you do your taxes and make the math work, I'm all for it.
Well, I mean,
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
How does an inanimate object like a chandelier or microwave oven or anything else actually say "I do"?
Seriously, it's being married against its will.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good point.
Say I don't, or forever you do.
Now, here's a question you don't have to answer, Bill, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You can just say plead the fifth. How many times you've been with somebody who goes, hey, for tonight's special thing, I need you to be a character.
Oh my God.
That's actually going on in my life right now. I have an online friend that is infatuated with me as a Narn.
Oh, wow. So do you have to drink like a vodka and milk and pretend it's rotten milk? That's pretty cool.
I will just say this, that at this point in time, I have been avoiding this situation.
That's pretty cool.
I keep trying to tell them I just don't have a makeup artist handy that's into spending that kind of time to please them.
Well, hopefully you never meet the person and they are the makeup artist. That would not go well.
I'm sure
together.
they're out there because some of these makeup artists.
I'm telling you, man.
they have skills and they have needs.
Yes,
this is very true.
But I'm sure the person is extremely nice and quite sincere. And everybody has their, I don't want to call it, you can call it fetishes or anything else that you want. But it does happen every once in a while. People want me to show up at parties in a particular character.
Yeah, I can believe that. I have more details on stuff eventually with being from doing radio back then.
So I have told people in the past, you can look for me and I'll be there, but I'm the invisible man when I show up.
There you go.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna
I do it by remote control. I tell them to pick up the phone and they can hear me.
That's something I'm gonna have to remember next time if somebody wants me to go somewhere. I was there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, at Halloween, just say I came as the invisible man.
You can make a lot more appearances that way.
I really thought it would be a real fun joke almost, because some people who are the invisible man, in order to be seen, are literally wrapped up in an ace bandage or something like that. And I thought it would be fun sometime to go as that character and literally wrap my entire body in an ace bandage when they say, "Who am I?" I'm the invisible man. Don't unwrap me or I'm gone.
Now, there's a little bit to get off topic, just slightly. I saw an inventive idea that someone had where they kind of wrap themselves up as like a zombie, but they had two iPads and they had one iPad on their back and one in the front, and they connected to each other via FaceTime. And the camera on the back was showing, of course, what was in the iPad in the front. So when you looked at it, it looked like you were seeing right through them.
That's cool.
I saw that. That was really awesome. I saw what you were talking about. Cool. That looked amazing.
So I thought that was cool. But let's talk about something that wasn't so cool. Help me with the name, because you know how I am with names. What is that Romulan woman that passed the mind freak test?
Narissa?
That ordered all the Narissa.
Yeah, the sister.
Narissa.
The evil sister.
Right, the sister.
Yeah.
She was beyond evil. Do you saw that she was going through in the way she was killing people?
I'm telling you, I really thought she was cool initially, and I don't like her now. I'm like, no, I'm done with Narissa. I don't have anything for her now.
I am so glad you brought that up, because if you notice, she killed all of the XBs except her aunt. What happened to her aunt? I want to know.
And she's just like borrows the guy's phaser and wears it the hell out and hands it back to him. It's like, give me another one. Just like, dude, that was my phaser.
Like, seriously, you gave me a defective phaser. I want a new one.
Yeah.
She was horrible.
I'm totally fixated on where the aunt is. The Aunt Ramada. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens, because she bailed on her aunt.
Yeah, she may come back. She may come out of that coma or whatever the heck she's in, and yikes.
Well, she had like
she bailed.
Narissa had a zombie invasion of the body snatchers when they all swarmed on her and were on her, and then she teleported away like she normally does.
Yep, she just kind of beamed away at the last second. No problem.
But we see how sophisticated teleporters have been, because in the old days, if someone was touching someone who was being teleported, they teleported with them. But yet she had all of those XPs on her.
That's true. You would have gotten like 20 dudes, around Narissa on a transporter pad. Yeah, technology has advanced so much in the transporters. I mean, you can look at it and go, no, really, these transporters have changed because they can do so much more precise work now.
Yep, they've evolved.
Yeah, seriously. So now we see that for the next episode that she had followed them into that warp conduit. But if we also learned here with it, we found out there was a Jana. So there was a whole army of Sojis out there. If there was a Jada that looked exactly like her.
I want to see who Beautiful Flower is.
She has a planet full of brothers and sisters. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, and it's a wonder how come Rios didn't recognize her right off the bat. Maybe he had such a traumatic thing. It just didn't happen for her.
I mean, it definitely, that scene, he definitely recognized her. It was like, he literally saw a ghost. I mean, he's like, hello, Rios, we're talking to you. Hello. He was just zombied out for like a good 30, 40 seconds right there.
Yeah. Which is somebody that suffered post-traumatic stress right there. You can block things off to a point when something comes and hits you. Like, even for myself, I know if there's a weird sound that happens at this place where I'm at right now, I go into, even though my mind tells me that was just a strange noise, my body's like, fuck you, get a knife, something's here.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So it takes a while to get out of it. So I can understand what Rios was going through. But I like the fact that once he got over that hurdle, that he was able to talk to Soji better when he told about the warp conduit. And how cool was the fact that he sung a lullaby to get his ship to unlock?
I love that.
Was it that, or was it for her? Because she kind of like zones out and
it was the ship.
No.
It was the ship. Okay,
that was how because he was saying his mother didn't like people playing with his toys too. So that was an anti-measure that he put in case someone stole his ship. He would get control.
I need the third watch to pick that up. Okay, yeah.
Subtitles.
Yeah, well, no, I was watching it with the subtitles, but I was trying to figure it out. And while he's singing, who's he singing to? Okay, so that makes a lot more sense. So he sang to the ship, and the force field came down.
Yeah,
makes sense. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to see everything. It took 8 episodes for Picard to get back to regular, for a lot of the secrets to be revealed, and to see how Seven and Elnor is going to make it back to them. But now they got to wonder what's going to happen when they reach her home planet. We see in the after show that they get there and it's like no one there. So what's up?
Don't know. Could be interesting.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, unfortunately, we're coming towards the tail end. But before we finish up over here, I want to say also, it has been our great honor to have you here, Bill.
Thank you.
I mean, your behind the scene peeks of what goes on was really, really friggin' cool. So that's awesome. And again, we're going to get a plaque and put it on the main turbo lift here, because we had a Guinness Book World Record holder on board the ship. That is so cool.
Oh, you're gonna put something up with the real words and not some behind the scenes inside joke the way they do on most starships.
This is true. The only behind the scenes stuff is all the people showing up to Heather's room in the middle of the night.
I'm telling you, that's Section 31. They're not leaving me alone. They're so persistent.
Don't know why they keep doing that. So does anybody have any more any love here for any shows or podcasts that are out there?
Oh, it was a crazy week, but I did feel some podcast love. Oh boy. Yeah. Remember when we talked about the Pic-Hard Talk podcast with the two British guys?
Yeah.
The next show they did, I was eating my lunch while I was listening to the show, and I just about spat out my French fries because, I was not expecting this. Let me play you this little clip.
Hailing frequencies open. We also had a comment about the show as well from Rick Hall, who said, just listen to the first episode. Well done, guys. Live long and prosper. I went back, just asking what he thought about Trek. At this point, he slightly dropped a bombshell because he was like, I was at the Hollywood premiere and saw the first 3 episodes. I was like, nice.
Name dropper.
Nice. So if there's any spare tickets going, Rick, let us know. I'd love to come along. He also guests on Starfleet Underground podcast. I've not listened to him yet. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, well done.
So Captain Hall made an impression on these guys.
Cool.
Outstanding.
It's just great.
Thank you, Patrick.
Outstanding. I'll have to tell him later and listen to him giggle for a while. He'll probably want to be back on again.
Probably.
Also, last thing before we go, Bill.
Yes.
Now, from what I understand, you do have something coming out. Could you kind of tease us with the title of what's coming out, or you can't do it because of NDA?
I will do everything I can according to what's up on IMDb. And for those that don't know what that is, of course, that's the Internet Movie Database. And scheduled to be released in May, I believe it's May 20th, is a new animation live-action crossover movie based on SpongeBob called the SpongeBob Movie, Sponge on the Run.
Nice.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
I do play a special effect character, kind of what I refer to as a rustic zombie pirate crossover.
Nice. Okay, for those of you who are SpongeBob fans like we are, make sure you see it because you got the advanced information right here on Starfleet Underground. Yes. And again, I have to say it was our intense honor having you on.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure joining you. It's always so much fun when I get to listen in on some things that is new information for me about shows and getting to share some of my history and the behind the scenes that a lot of other people might not hear about from time to time and what goes into the kind of work that I do. I do invite everybody to visit my website, which is alienactor.com. You can keep up with what I'm doing, anything new, see things that I've done in the past, the link to my YouTube channel. It has some of the things on other interviews that I've done, shows that I've been on. And for anybody that is interested that would like to meet me or have me at their event, just contact me through my website. There's a contact link and you'll be touching base directly with me. I do not really work with agents. I like being one-on-one with the people.
Oh, that's cool, dude. I totally dig that about you. I didn't know that. That's great. You're just a guy. That's cool.
No, make sure that we put his information on the tagline for the
alienactor.com. Is that what it was?
Correct.
There you go.
So that is awesome. Now, today's show was brought to you by Section 31. We don't know why they keep funding us, and we're not going to ask. I guess they're doing it because they like popping into Heather's room in the middle of the night. So as long as that keeps going on.
Oh my goodness, Heather, you just glitched.
Really?
Yes, yeah. I think Section 31 didn't want you telling about them. So now we're wrapping up and we're going to be warping out. So make sure you just don't have a nice week. Make it so.
Starfleet Underground, beaming into a podcast feed near you. Log on to our website at starfleetunderground.com and send your comments and questions to thecollective@starfleetunderground.com. Follow us on Twitter at StarfleetUnderG and on Facebook and Instagram, we're Starfleet Underground. And don't forget alienactor.com to find out more about Bill Blair.